my opinions of Diablo 4 Season 8, Pioneer finally coming to Arena, and finally a new reprint and card style choice on Arena itself by Magic the Gathering. But first, the lovely intro. My name is Dom Douglas, and I've been playing Magic the Gathering for what seems like forever, but in fact it's only been on and off for about 30 years. With that comes an expectation that I'm the best player ever. You couldn't be any more wrong in that statement. What I do like, however, is having a lot of fun. Whether it be playing Limited, Draft, Commander, Standard when I get the chance, Arena, Magic the Gathering Online, it doesn't matter as long as a good time is had. And with that, I have some opinions, not just of Magic the Gathering, but also video games, comics, maybe even a TV show or two. This is the Goblin Grenade Podcast. That's right, everybody. Goblin Grenade Podcast. My name is Dom Douglas here for Max Heroes and Villains YouTube channel. Don't forget to leave a like, comment, and subscribe if you enjoy everything that we've been doing here on this podcast, along with all the other content on Max Heroes and Villains YouTube channel. And folks, shorter podcast than normal today because first we're going to talk about Magic with Arena Pioneer coming on Arena finally, and then we're going to talk about the new reprint and card style news that Magic dropped on magic.wizards.com. First things first, we're going to Pioneer. Pioneer's finally come to Arena on May 10th. They are replacing Explorer, which came out in 2022, and over the last 3 years, they've been doing their best to make Explorer the version of Pioneer on Arena. If I'm not mistaken, they have like 99.9% of the cards available in Pioneer now on Arena, and this past Arena Championship 8 basically solidified everything. So basically it took them 3 years to do it, and they knew that they would retire the name Explorer and replace it with Pioneer. On May 10th, they finally get to do that. They've been closely watching Pioneer, and they believe they've achieved this goal. Out of the 411 distinct competitive Magic Online deck lists played in March, Explorer was only missing 7 cards found in those decks. Okay, and then Arena Championship 8 saw 50 Explorer deck lists at the event that were nearly identical to their Pioneer counterparts. So they asked their Arena Championship players about any missing cards, and the vast majority didn't feel there were many major misses. Maybe stuff that is super fringe, that isn't only one deck in a sideboard out of the thousands of cards, out of the hundreds of cards available. Hundreds of decks, available in Explorer. They did mention, these players did mention a few key sideboard cards, so they wanted to be sure to implement those into the game. Given the current Pioneer metagame, they are confident they've reached their goal and are ready to make this change. And I think it's a good thing. Pioneer may actually start kicking off after this. On May 10th, they changed the name from Explorer to Pioneer. And going forward, the format's ban list will match Tabletop's Pioneer, meaning Tybalt's Trickery will be unbanned on Arena from Explorer when it changes to Pioneer. Tybalt's Trickery is not banned in Pioneer. And they are also adding a new title for the achievements. To finalize this change, they are adding 11 new MTG Arena cards to the game. These choices were informed by the top decks from Magic Online and the Arena Championship players. These cards will be available for crafting and as rewards from the limited time Pioneer Showcase event. And they include the following: Battle at the Bridge, X and a black spell for a sorcery with Improvise. Your artifacts can help cast this spell. Each artifact you tap after you've done paying the mana abilities pay for 1 generic mana. Target creature gets -X until end of turn. You gain X life. Barbarigamos Enraged, 4/2 red, 2 green for a 7/6 legendary Cyclops with Trample. When Barbarigamos Enraged deals combat damage to a player, reveal the top 3 cards of your library. Put all land cards revealed this way into your hand and the rest into your graveyard. Discard a land card. Enraged deals 3 damage to any target. Encroaching Wastes, which is a land. Tap to add a generic mana, or 4 and tap to sacrifice it, destroy target non-basic land. Kazul's Toll Collector for 2 and a red for an Ogre Warrior with 3/2. For 0, attach target equipment you control to Kazul Toll Collector. Activate this ability only anytime you can cast a sorcery. Big card here, Magnetic Insight for 1 red for a sorcery. As an additional cost to cast this spell, discard a land card. Draw 2 cards. Nissa's Defeat which is 2 and a green for a sorcery. Destroy target forest, green enchantment, or green's planeswalker. If that permanent was a Nissa planeswalker, draw a card. Rakdos Charm is another big one that's making it for a black and a red for an instant. Choose one. Exile target player's graveyard, destroy target artifact, and the more important one, each creature deals 1 damage to its controller. So if there are token decks out there that poop out 100 tokens in a turn, you can Rakdos Charm and win the game there and then. Roast, which is shocking, wasn't in there before, for 1 and a red for a sorcery, deals 5 damage to target creature without flying. One of the best premium removal spells when it was out in the Tarkir block, the first Tarkir block. Sanctum of Ugin, tap to add 1 to your mana pool. And it's a land. And then whenever you cast a colorless spell with converted mana cost 7 or greater, you may sacrifice Sanctum of Ugin. If you do, search your library for a colorless creature card, reveal it, put it in your hand, and then shuffle your library. Triton Shorewalker is a blue merfolk rogue, which is a 1/1, and it cannot be blocked. And then finally, Warping Whale. 1 and a generic colorless, 1 and a wasteland, which is different. Choose 1. Exile target creature with power or toughness 1 or less. Counter target sorcery spell, or create a 1/1 colorless Eldrazi Scion creature token with it has this sacrifice this creature, add a waste mana to your mana pool. Or the showcase event is going to take place from the 10th to the 13th. It's a competitive event on Arena, and that'll be it. It's normal pricing and whatnot. And then the other thing in Arena, they have adjusted how reprints are now handled to make it easier to fill out your collection. Previously, to use a playset of a specific printing in your deck, you needed to open or craft 4 copies of that exact printing. For example, for reprints, especially at rare or mythic rare, it caused some frustration. This is from the article, once again, from wizards.com. As an example, the new Arid Mesa from Tarkir Dragonstorm is a lot less exciting if you already have a playset from the Modern Horizons 2. Team knew something had to change. That's why they've made 2 big improvements to this area. First, the number of copies of a card a player can use in their deck is equal to the number of copies that player has collected across all printings. And they showed the 4 different versions of Opt there. If you have one of each of these versions, you can now play 4 copies of that art that you like, as long as you control as long as you own the 4 copies of Opt. Starting next week, they can even mix and match the different printings. Number of copies a player can include in their deck is now across all printings. Now the game is getting a lot of reprints, especially in Arena. If they were to reprint Opt in a future set, any player that already has 4 copies of Opt would need to only craft the 1 copy of Opt from that future set. Once they do, the game will treat it as if they have 4 copies of the new printing. Arena is aware of how many copies of a card are useful to you and will prevent you from crafting more than you need. Okay? The TLDR version, you won't be required to collect as many reprints to fill out your collection. They're also changing the duplication and protection set completion. With these changes, it's faster to collect a playset of reprinted cards. As such, duplicate protection and vault progress will kick in sooner. Duplicate protection still exists, so reprints of rares and mythic rares that you've already collected will still be deferred until you've collected all the other eligible cards of that rarity in the set. The difference is now that you'll only open a single copy of each reprinted card instead of 4. Similarly, I can't say that word today. Anyway, vault progress for reprinted commons and uncommons will also begin sooner. For the purposes of completing a set, such as set completion screen, or for certain achievements, you'll only need a single copy of a card from a specific set as long as you have a playset of that card with the same name. It is not duplicate protection is never applied when you open 14 card packs in limited events such as Draft and Sealed. Any card, any style. If you have 4 different copies of Thalia, that they say Garden of Thraben, and there are 4 different versions, you can choose one of those versions and now have 4 copies. And then now crafting using the lowest MTG Arena rarity. All cards with the same name will now require the same wild card to craft. The wild card of the lowest rarity, that card has been released on Arena. take Goreclaw, Terror of Cosmia, originally printed in Core Set 2019 as a rare. It was reprinted as an uncommon in Pioneer Masters. With next week's update, crafting any printing of Goreclaw will only require an uncommon wildcard, even if the printing that you want to copy is rare. Craft is rare. So yeah, across the board, great decision here for Wizards of the Coast and Arena. It's about time that Pioneer made its way. I really feel the format will now officially start popping off. Like Standard has, and even Modern to an extent, because now you have the Arena client to play Pioneer. So that was the Magic the Gathering news for this episode. Now, remember last week when I said I did this podcast early because of Diablo 4 Season 8? I'm doing this podcast late because of Diablo 4 Season 8. And it's very mixed for me. I've basically done everything I wanted to do. I've put about 50-something hours into this season. My character is only Paragon level 200. I have not completed the last tier of Season Journey. I have completed the battle passes. I bought the bundle, and I can see why people are mad. There is way less that you get between emotes. You don't get any emotes anymore. You don't get any call phrases anymore. You barely get any platinum, which is the biggest thing. And the thing that affects me is I thought I could roll for the next year and a half with the old way of the battle pass, because you would earn like 500 to 700 platinum a season on the battle pass. So I could just roll that 700 into the next one and the next one, because I bought the ultimate edition of the Spiritborn Vessel of Hatred, because it came with so much platinum. And I was like, all right, I did the math, and I was like, this, if I do this, I get to free roll basically for the next year and a half. Now it's probably only going to be for like the next 3 seasons, because it is more expensive as well. There is this illusion of choice that people love to talk about, and they're somewhat right. You get a free one, but the other 3 are unlocked with platinum. And the free one, you get 200 platinum tops. And the other ones, you get no platinum whatsoever. And if you want to get the special full kit cosmetic gear, you have to unlock everything in all the battle passes. I don't like that at all, because we all know the battle pass cosmetics aren't as cool as the game, like the in-shop cosmetics, and I've never bought a single cosmetic in Diablo 4. It's mainly been using my currency for battle pass stuff. At this point, it's still going to stay the same. So the battle pass, I feel, is a bit of a letdown, if you will. The season theme, acquiring boss powers. I was correct in my assumption last week where I was like, this is kind of boring, because we're doing quote-unquote powers again. If it's not vampire powers, if it's not artifact construct powers, if it's not random wild powers, it's now boss powers. It's literally just been the same copy-paste season content, if you will, for the last year or so. Kind of upsetting that it's stuck in this narrow-minded way of thinking. That being said, the Belial content is great. That boss fight is still one of the most visually impressive boss fights in all of Diablo 4, and even Diablo 3. That Belial fight in Diablo 3 was choice on the visuals. And it does this kind of same thing where the visual in the boss fight for Belial, the big daddy version of Belial, okay, like not the random one that appears on the regular map when you're doing that like aspiration content. Those were fun for a bit. Gathering boss powers is great. I'm never going to get the Lilith boss power because I play as much solo as I can. I do not group up. I do not do teams. I don't group up with parties. I simply don't. I don't like doing that in this game. And I don't like doing it in any ARPG, and that goes for Path of Exile 1 and 2. Issue is, You kind of have to do some of the content with other people, but it's usually world boss fights and the Belial stuff on the main map and Helltide stuff, which is Helltide is still like the most fun, frantic, brain dead mechanic in all of Diablo 4, so much so that it's kind of copied once again with the Belial aspirations thing, where you're fighting the 2 boss fights and then you fight like a mini version of Belial. It's basically ripping off Helltide, but Helltide's really good. Nightmare Dungeons, only use them if I need Obusite. Infernal Hordes, only did it to get Season's Journey stuff done. But once again, going back to not getting the last power of Lilith, they still do the thing where if you one-shot a boss and they have extra mechanics involved, they will be at 1 HP, so they get their mechanics in. In the wrestling world, we call that, I need to get my stuff in, brother. And Diablo 4 loves getting their stuff in. Basically, if you one-shot with Lilith, Uber Lilith, you still have 5 minutes of boss fight to do. You can't damage Lilith. You can't officially kill her. She's already dead once she gets past that 5 minutes of BS of dodging and rolling and running around, instant kill stuff, mind you. So you can't even make a mistake because you just have to repeat that whole thing over again. I've done it twice when it was harder. I've done it twice, but it took me 2 hours each time because I just simply don't remember the mechanics of the Lilith fight because I do it so infrequently. Duriel and Dariel, all the other boss fights, I know the mechanics for. The new old big monster fight with the portals and whatnot, that was kind of interesting. But once again, it's one of those things where if you are over damaging the boss, it will cut off it being able to be damaged so it gets its mechanic in. And for power fantasy gamers that you want us to obtain certain levels of power, what better way to make us not feel any power whatsoever than preventing us from killing a boss fight in 2 seconds because we built it up there. Just so your 5-minute bullet hell shooter mechanic that you made can get in. I wish they would stop it, and it doesn't look like they will. So that means I've done everything except beat Lilith, and I don't see any point in me playing it again. And the Berserk stuff just dropped today. If I was a fan of that particular show, I'd be grinding out the last little bit of things that you can do. And for those, and it's not me not knocking the show, I'm just not a fan of it, never watched it, but I'm happy that y'all get some great content in and get at least some cool crossovers, but it's not for me. So I might wind up going back to Path of Exile 2 because of all this, because I haven't even tested the new loot system yet in Path of Exile 2 that they dropped like a week before Season 8 dropped. But I've had a very contentious time with Path of Exile 2 Dawn of the Hunt. Now, another thing that I think they got right in Diablo 4 is loot. The loot feels good. The loot feels like an accomplishment, especially in the earlier difficulty levels. And even in early Torment 1 to 2, it felt really good. Case in point, I haven't updated a single piece of gear since I hit Torment 2. I'm now at Torment 4. I haven't really had the opportunity to upgrade any gear because I have everything pretty much like masterworked with tempering, and the ring, one of the rings I have, it's the last piece of gear because I'm doing a Whirlwind Earthquake Barbarian, was I got a ring of vocalized empowerment, which basically reduces the cost of my buffs, is shouts, if you will, to get better, to make my time spinning and winning and casting my ultimate and casting all the spells and casting all the buffs quicker. I got the max level ring, and it perfectly rolled with all the stats that ring needed for the build. So I was like, cool, I don't have to upgrade this. I'll just temper it, and then I'll just masterwork it to 8. All my gear, masterwork 8, except for one sword. One of my one-handed swords is masterworked to 12 because it's just perfect. It's I can't get that sword any better statistically speaking. So I was like, all right, this will be the piece of gear that I masterwork to 12. But yeah, like gear felt good. Gear feels good. And to the point that when you hit certain torment tiers, or if you hit torment itself, any rare and below gear that drops is immediately junked. So you get the crafting materials for it. Just if it drops, you don't even see it, and the crafting materials that it dropped shows up in your crafting materials, which is phenomenal. Gold, however, is now worthless. At a certain point, it's worthless because you don't have to pay to respec your character now. I kind of don't like that. I like that since day one, you could respec your character and it costs gold. But at a certain point in the game, I don't need gold anymore. I don't. And the best part is the build that I got from Max Roll on the Earthquake Whirlwind. I don't even have the correct runes because those never dropped. I have a backup set of runes that the guide says, hey, this is good if you can't get this. And then I have other 2 set of runes that I've been using since they kind of dropped for me very early in the game, like pre-Torment. And that's been going good. But the super specialized build that only 5% of the players will get, I don't have. And I don't feel like grinding for it because there's nothing. It's starting to lose the appeal this season. And thankfully, the season's short. It's only 2 months long, according to the season pass. So maybe season 9 might do something, but who knows? I might only play that for a few days, max out the battle pass, max out as much as I can on the season journey, and then call it a day again, which stinks because Diablo 4, I like the core gameplay. It's that perfect blend of mindlessness with a little bit of thought put in. Path of Exile 2 is super critical thinking at all times. And sometimes I really like that. I really, really do. But other times I just want to hit my right trigger on my Xbox controller, which is my button to Whirlwind, and forget that I need to think for an hour or so. But the gear is good. The season is blah. Some of the requirements for the season journey kind of sucked. Especially having to do defeating bosses using other bosses' powers, and that's why I'm not going to be able to complete it, because 2 of them I need to beat Lilith using somebody else's power, and then I need to beat somebody else using Lilith's power. And those are the 2 that I simply will not be able to get because I'm not beating Lilith. There's no way I'm going to waste 4 hours of my time and frustration doing this boss fight that should end 5 seconds after it starts, only for me to have to deal with 5 minutes of dodging and guessing correctly. And if you make one wrong move, you're right back to the beginning. Diablo 4, that particular boss fight plays like Path of Exile 1 and 2. And it's the only boss fight that plays like that. I've beaten every other Uber boss, every other cool little side quest boss and whatnot. I haven't beat Lilith. And I don't beat Lilith because it's the only time in Diablo 4 which wants to kind of have a little bit of thought, but kind of be brainless. And there's room for that. I mean, I've been playing the game for 2 years now almost. But you can't do this flip where one boss fight is the hardest thing ever. Path of Exile gets away with it because everything's a hard fight. Sometimes too hard. I'm looking at you beginning a season Dawn of the Hunt. But yeah, you just can't do that. And people beat it all the time, and I get it, but I'm not grinding, and I'm not trying to do memorization patterns for Lilith, because she does like 5 or 6 different attacks, and you have to get in the perfect zone to not get hit. And if you're in, even if you're breathing near that zone, you instantly die, and you have to start everything over again. So it basically starts with me running up to her, boss fight starts, blop everything, spin for like 2 seconds, her health pool goes to nothing, and then the fight stops. And then it goes into the 5 minutes of whatever bullet hell mechanics that she has that you have to dodge. And then once that happens, I just kind of hit her once and she's done. But I don't want to do that. So that's my complaints about Diablo 4 where it's at right now. And I really think they need to change some things. Diablo 4 needs to have something for endgame. There is no endgame content. I don't know how to say this. The endgame content is grind. Whatever you feel like it. That's not endgame content. That's just kind of grinding for grind's sake. When I'm talking like endgame content, it's like Path of Exile 1, where, maps. Path of Exile 2, maps. Great endgame content. You can go to different zones and tweak that particular area to your liking, make it harder for you so better stuff drops, or make it easier for you so you can just blast through and get to the next one, or you can have like more rares or more currency drop, this, that. You can tailor a little bit these maps. In Diablo 4, it's Nightmare Dungeons, Infernal Hordes, and Uber boss fights. That's it. That's it. And the Nightmare Dungeons are exactly the same. You might have something chasing you. You might have extra damage or being done to you, but there's no way to alter that. What if I want everything to happen, but I get like 50% experience because every time I take a step, I take damage and stuff like that? That's the type of stuff I would really like to see in the game, but I don't think it's going to happen until the next year's expansion, if at all. As I said earlier, shorter podcast than normal. I played a lot of Diablo 4, and the news of Magic Arena with Pioneer and the craft protection sets coming out, the new crafting coming out, rule set, I mean. So yeah, shorter podcast, but hey, sometimes they're not all going to be an hour long, and they shouldn't all be an hour long either. My name is Dom Douglas, the voice of XWW, Max Heroes and Villains sister company, and may your top deck always be mythic. Yeah, I have nothing to say. It's just Diablo 4 gets boring after a while.